Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Garbage Gold. Let's show you what I'm working on today. Deep freeze. Here in Corona land, can't buy a deep freeze. It's impossible. It's a 6-year-old, like, Kenmore. For some reason it doesn't cool. We're gonna check it out. This thing's got a bunch of functionality. You can't actually see this in the video, but there's options, and it brings up a bunch of cool stuff there. Anyway, there's a bunch of fake functionality. Doesn't actually turn on though. And you can change the temperature. -4, -3. Displays in Fahrenheit. So inside this compressor housing, there's a control panel over here on the right. It's normally facing the other way and it's pinned up on the sheet metal, but I pulled that down. There's a whole bunch of important electronic blah blah blah. But so main harness here, it's got ground, neutral, black's the hot, and then yellow's the switch leg going back to the compressor. And then that control panel is gonna run off that fancy touchscreen display, and it's gonna use this hole right here is where the thermistor goes into the freezer. It's going to use all that information, and it's going to tell the compressor when to switch on and off. So I just jumped that out, and at first I was a little spooked because, as a master electrician once told me, things run on smoke, and if you let the smoke out of them, they don't work anymore. So I was afraid that it was going to let it smoke out because it made kind of a strange gurgling noise. And then I just walked away and thought, if it burns down, I'll just push it out of my garage before the whole place goes up. And then I came back a little while later and it was making a nice little humming compressor noise. So we got this meat thermometer here, and the yellow there, it's showing 55 degrees, which is pretty close to ambient. We'll leave her in there and see if she starts to cool down. Alright, I'm gonna give you a little update out here. So we got, man, I don't even know, we got 3 or 4 inches of rain over the weekend. Got my sheep out on my portable pasture here. Just made these, well, I showed you these panels. Makes a nice little portable deal. Also, another little garbage gold story. We had frost 2 days ago, I think. This chunk of plastic, I don't even know what it is, but it's got like some reinforced mesh in it. And somebody was throwing it away. It's half a roll of 40 by 100. And I got that for free too, so it saved my garden. My wife said if my garden died again, there was no replant action. Just a little perspective on how chilly it gets around here is like, my goodness, you know, it's what, June 12th, something like that? No, June 9th? We don't even have hardly a garden going. And yeah, we got a little bit of a late jump, but it already got frosted out once. It's just kind of a cooler climate here. Okay, so in 10 minutes we've dropped 16 degrees, so I feel confident my jumper is working and the compressor is making cold. We'll see how it goes. Also, I pulled this out. I just unplugged all the connectors, and then I slipped this out of the compressor compartment. So these boards are just retained in here somehow. I mean, it's kind of all different. Different machines have different retention mechanisms, but I don't. This is gonna probably be the relay that switches the compressor on and off. I'd have to tone some of this out and figure it out. It's a pretty simple single layer circuit board, so it's not. It wouldn't be that difficult to repair. I have my lambs in here. My lamb and my goat. 1 goat, 6 lambs. And you can see them that line right there. That's right where the panels were. It actually is a little bit beyond where the panel is. You can kind of see the line. They stick their head through the panel and dig through and eat through the panel. So, see, we're gonna come down this side. After we get down over there, we'll come up this side. We'll feed all this off. This is just all ground that can't be hayed and used for anything else, so it's pretty good for throwing a few sheep on, get them fed for free. Okay, so I've been messing around with this control board, and I ohmed out this relay, this little relay. There's no obvious smoke loss signs, like no melting, no resistors that look punched. I'm not a superstar at troubleshooting these. They're kind of complicated. Well, they're actually probably not that complicated, but I'm just got a simple brain between my ears. Alright, $25 freezer. $14 degrees. Now, you may think that's lying, but there's frost on the sides, nice and cold inside. The problem is my little red and black jumper there, she ain't gonna control the temperature. She's just gonna keep going down and down and down until the compressor either burns up or freezes, or I don't know what happens when you just run a compressor continuous. Okay, so it wasn't quite sure how I wanted to build a temperature control for this, but I dug through my electronic stuff and found a little tiny developer board that I'd had a signal lamp on previously. I just soldered it up, and I'll show you kind of what I did here. So I had a wall wart that I stole from work. It's 12 volt, like 1.5 amp wall wart. So it'll feed 12 volt into this block here that I labeled with my label maker there. I had a laser etching label maker that I labeled 12 volt. And then you see, if I can move this wire out of the way. Got 5 volt coming out here, and then I have a relay out here. So what essentially I've got going on is I'm going to take 12 volt in, and then there's that voltage regulator there, and then it'll make it 5 volt, and it'll drive this little tiny 5 volt relay here, and that relay will be driven by this Arduino Uno. There's a ton of videos on YouTube on how to use these open source microcontrollers, and plugged into it I have a temperature probe. I think that's like $3 or $4. It's a pretty fancy temperature probe. It's a serial temperature probe or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about all this stuff. I just jump on the old interweb and learn how to use it. So these are pretty handy. They're pretty cheap, and they're easy to program because you can use USB cord. You don't have to have anything fancy. I like that board, but I may go to this little mini board that's a little tougher to deal with, but once it's programmed, it'll work great, and it's really small, so it'll go in my freezer compartment really easy, or my compressor compartment. So that's kind of what I got going on. I got a program in here right now that will bring the temperature down to 5 degrees, and then it'll allow the temperature of the freezer to get up to 25 before turning the compressor back on. And so this is a pretty simple deal. I just soldered it up. It's really simple. I mean, it looks kind of jank, but it works really well. The other thing that we did is I had this board that I stole from something. I don't even know what it came out of, but it had all these terminal blocks on it. So I robbed a few off of there and I stuck them on this little board. Makes it really handy to hook these up. Like if I have this this power supply go bad, then I just swap it out. I don't have to solder anything out. These are just screw terminals. They're pretty handy. And then this automation direct relay is, I really like these. As I was taught by an electrician early on how to use these, and they're pretty cool because they have this little tab that you can flip up and manually turn on the relay. So if you're troubleshooting like a complex e-stop circuit or something that has lots of big loops in it, it's kind of handy to be able to jump your relay out right there mechanically without having to put power to it. So I like using those automation direct relays, and then I just set this up. So that relay will switch my compressor. And maybe this seems a little redundant to have a relay here and a relay here, but my Arduino, the outputs on the Arduino can only handle like 40 milliamp or something. And the lower load you put on these, the better. So I use this intermediate relay because I'm going to turn, the Arduino is going to turn that relay on, which is going to turn this bigger relay on. And the reason for doing that is to reduce the amperage output that the Arduino Uno will have to supply, because the coil, the milliamps required to pull this coil in are higher than the milliamps required to pull this little tiny card relay in. Anyway, I'm gonna get her set up and I'll show you that. Alright, moment of truth. I got the freezer plugged into the wall, and I'm just gonna plug this port in here. We kind of have this tipped in. Board lights up. I don't know if you can hear that, but that compressor just kicked right on. So this relay you can see on the right is lit up. That's, again, it's powered by that. The Arduino is kicking it on. So watch the temperature, see what it does. Okay, starting off at 56. Still have this whole setup temped in here. I want to make sure that it works. You can see I still am plugged into the original wire loom and connector there. I'm just stabbed in with some solid wire there. It's a pretty simple setup. The reason that I did that is because, like, I mean, we all think we're pretty smart, but I think it's even smarter to be able to go back to this board at any second if I want. Until I'm confident this is going to cool it and not overcycle the compressor, I'm going to leave it factory, so I can buy this board for like 130 bucks online, and that's still a pretty cheap freezer, but it's not nearly as fun as building this custom control. And I don't know if we're really that far ahead, but that development board has done a lot of projects for me. So if I swap it out for that other littler one, I can keep using this board. So kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, you can just reprogram it and do something else with it. So it's pretty cool, a lot of fun. Okay, we're having a little bit of an issue here, so we'll focus on that. So you can see right there on my serial monitor for my Arduino, says 44 degrees. The problem is that my external, or my regular thermometer, my little probe thermometer, says 23 degrees. Now the reason for that is there's a tube right here. Right here. These are line sets for the condenser, but this right here actually had this little thermocouple jammed up inside there, and so it was up in there probably, I don't know, a foot or two, quite a ways, but because this temperature probe is a little bigger around, it doesn't go up in there as far, so we're gonna have to change it around a little bit. And what we're gonna do, maybe we'll just throw it in the freezer for now to make sure that my software and my hardware work, and then we'll figure that out later. Alright, this is what we did here. Took that temperature probe and we cut the metal outer jacket, and maybe you are not familiar with these, but they're like a little tiny probe, 3-wire probe. This is kind of a fancier one from what I understand, but they're just jammed up in this pipe and they're like glued in there. Some stickier glue. So there's not really, like, this is not necessary. Jeez, that's hard to find when you're looking through the camera. This is not necessary. This is handy, and when you jam it on here and heat shrink the back end, it makes them fairly waterproof and things. So it's application specific. So here we pulled that off because we need it to go up into a smaller hole. that probe. We're showing 23 degrees on our probe, and our temperature of our freezer is 25 degrees, so I'm a lot more happy with that type of temperature differential rather than almost 15 or 20 degrees. So that was a easy fix there. Okay, so the current temp's 5 degrees and my set point's 5. And as you can see, my relay's still on, so I don't know. We'll see. I'll let it go a little longer, see if it shuts it off. Okay, my set point, or I'm sorry, my current temperature is 4, and my relay is shut off. So I probably programmed this in the code. If we look down in this code to turn off. So yeah, right here, I'm using just straight less than or greater than conditions, so it makes sense that you're shutting off when it goes to 4, not 5. Less than or equal to would give me a 5 probably. So, all right. Okay, so she's still temped in here, but after we make sure she shuts off at 5 degrees, button her up, and let her go. Fix the freezer. Thanks for watching another episode of Garbage Gold. Took a $25 freezer, made it cold. Thanks for watching.